Thompson, we don't have. And- Okay. There's Jared. You can do the pledge, but I'd rather get lined up ahead of time.
14th ward, right?
No, on the third.
Third ward, okay. Somebody was in charge of the state department of bacon. And he came in with his wife and volunteered the whole day. So nice.
Did you get your copy?
It was a long day too, because it's like 6 hours. So
I'll get whatever's left over to take home.
He's retired, so he doesn't know son.
yeah, for sure.
Email.
Which was nice.
Go ahead, huh?
We did it in a weekday, so it's hard.
Lisa from Landmark, that's
We
good.
did it at the West Building, because then we could use the park and the bus area. Because like, we did archery and you can't put that on the city park, but we could put it on the church.
Participation.
We had 260 kids.
Oh, great.
Mike, are you ready to go ahead? I'd like to welcome you to our Planning Commission meeting this evening. We're always glad to have residents with us, and I know we have a special presenter here from Landmark also. Glad to have you all here. This meeting is being recorded. We're going to begin with an opening prayer by Commissioner Johnson, and then a pledge of allegiance by Commissioner Callis.
Our Father in heaven, we're grateful for this opportunity we have to meet together tonight as residents of this city and to discuss the matters before us. We're grateful for all the time and effort that's gone into preparing for this meeting and ask you to please bless those who present, that they can present in a way that will be meaningful, that we can all get the information we need. I ask you to bless us that we can be thoughtful in our processes and that we can make good recommendations for the city. We're grateful for this great place that we live and ask you to continue to bless it. We say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Will the audience please rise and repeat the Pledge of Allegiance with me? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We're going to begin our meeting with an audible roll call of the commissioners. Sharon Call here. Mike Marchbanks may be joining us. Jared Showers.
Here.
Rob Callis.
Here.
Stephen Johnson.
Here.
Scott Thompson hasn't arrived yet. Karen Danielson.
Here.
Okay. And the next item on our agenda, we're going to go through the minutes for May 23rd, 2023. Commissioners have received the minutes ahead of time and had a chance to review those. Do I have any changes or corrections? I just had one. In the minutes, when you get down to where, you know, the comments and that, college is spelled, I think his last name is Colledge, and it's spelled college without the DGE in several places.
Where is that at? What page?
It's down where the comments start. It's line 16. That's where I noticed it first. No, excuse me. Line 30, 31. That's where I noticed it first. But then under Jim Peters' comments, I noticed that college is in there twice. And then down through, there's several places where it's I just thought on a name, if it was just a word, I wouldn't be concerned, but on a name, we probably ought to have the spelling right. So anything else anyone has? Okay, do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make that motion
Okay,
with, that they're approved with corrections.
okay. Have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the voting is unanimous. And I just note that Commissioner Thompson has joined us. Item number 3 on our agenda, this is a time for public comment. This would be for any items that are not already on the agenda for this evening. Is there anyone here for that purpose? Okay. The next item on our agenda, we'll be reviewing the proposal for our general plan update, and that is a public hearing, so I do need a motion to open a public hearing.
So moved.
Okay, I have a motion, do I have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, motion and a second, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the voting is unanimous. So item number 4, this is a general plan update. Our applicant is Lindon City. Our presenting staff is Michael Florence, and then he will introduce a guest we have here with us.
Great.
Go
Well, thank you,
ahead.
Commissioners. It's great to be here with you this evening. We've spent about a little over the past year working on this general plan. We had our first kickoff meeting on April 28th, 2022, and so it's been a good process to go through. So this evening you'll be holding a public hearing on the general plan, and we're grateful for those who have shown up tonight and look forward to any feedback. The city has done a number of outreach efforts, which Lisa Benson, who with Landmark Design, will go through on her presentation. We also set up a general plan committee with residents that represented different areas of the city. We've also done a mail and postal service and social media campaign for public outreach as well. And so the general plan, the purpose of the general plan is an advisory document. The state legislature requires that every city have a general plan. Mainly the areas that the general plan is focused on that the state requires is land use, transportation, moderate income housing, and a future element on water conservation. Then they allow the cities to do other elements or other chapters as well, such as economic development, community values, let's see, any others that? Public facilities, environmental, and so those are chapters that are also included in our general plan. And so hopefully the links all worked for you. They were linked to our city website. We've tried to keep that updated for everybody and the public as well to look at that. So with that, I'll turn the time over to Lisa, and she'll give us a overview of the different chapters and process that we've been through with the general plan.
I might just mention that this is a public hearing, and we will be happy to have your input, but if we could just ask that you wait until the presentation is complete, and then we will open it up for public comment. So.
Thank you for the opportunity to be here this evening to talk about the general plan. It's been a pleasure working with you over the last year, so we're excited to be to this point and hear any additional public input on the process. Mike did a good job summarizing the purpose of the general plan. It provides that guiding vision that city leaders and staff use to make decisions and to set policies and regulations. These are the 9 plan elements that Mike mentioned. We have the ones required by state and then a few additional ones to help supplement the community, other ones that are important to Lindon City to provide that vision. And we're just going to run through a quick summary of each of these elements.
Lisa, can I have you move that just a little closer?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, the background and introduction element starts off with a summary of the public engagement process. The city conducted a public survey back in 2017. So we took a look at that data, rolled that into the process, and then we also had a couple of public meetings throughout the project. And we had a project website that hosted an online mapping tool called Social Pinpoint. We also worked closely with 2 committees, as Mike mentioned, the General Plan Committee and then the broader Joint Committee, which included the full Planning Commission and City Council. Some of the key takeaways from the public engagement process included the importance of preserving that small town rural feel of Lindon, providing a variety of housing options that, for all ages that also blend with the character of the community, expanding the diversity of your commercial options in the community, enhancing your parks, recreation, and trails opportunities, and then also improving the aesthetics of the city. Based on the public input and working closely with staff and our committees, 5 principles were established to guide the development of the master plan, and they roll some of that public engagement into it. So again, preserving the unique aspect, the unique character of Lindon City, encouraging economic development and leveraging your strong regional position, protecting your existing neighborhoods, enhancing those parks and recreation opportunities, and also protecting the animal rights, which are important to residents, and then proactively planning for future growth and change. The second element looks at land use. In the future land use map here summarizes the vision for the community in the future. And so the town center is shown in that darker red color up along 700 North at Anderson Boulevard. That's one of the key centers in the community. And then there are also 3 transit and commercial nodes along State Street. And you can see that kind of medium red color along 700 North and State Street. That's the general commercial use. And there's a couple of other nodes, one east of or west of I-15, and then also down at the south end of the city there in the center. You have the existing heavy industrial uses there in the dark purple along Geneva Road, and that is buffered by, surrounded by the light industrial uses around to the west, a little to the east, and then on the other side of I-15. Your existing residential neighborhoods are protected there, and the light yellow is your low-density residential, the medium yellow is your medium-density residential, and then the orange is your mixed density and residential high out there on the west. And there's a transitional use called mixed commercial, which is in that darker pink color. That provides a transition, a little bit of a buffer between some of the industrial uses and your existing residential neighborhoods. And you can also see a little bit of that is wrapped around that medium or mixed density residential high area. And then you have a flex commercial area in the northwest corner of the city, some flex office down around that general commercial node in the south end of the city, and then your open space and parks uses
Hey,
throughout.
Lisa?
Yeah.
We created a map that we had on our website that shows the different properties where the future land use map was changed. I think that, could we show that right now? I think that would be
Yeah.
helpful. Let's see. So this shows about, I didn't count the properties, but this shows which ones have been changed. The ones in this aqua blue color here, that would be changed to a public facilities, is that right? Or community facility designation. So basically those are like public entity properties. So those are like schools, the transfer station, city-owned facilities, and so that's what that blue color is. So you can see how we've changed those. So if the public has any comments, when we get to that point, we can pull up what designation was before and what it is proposed.
And that map also points out there are also 2 neighborhood-oriented nodes, kind of in that magenta color off to the east. Yeah, exactly, off of Center Street. Those are a couple of other centers within the community. And the plan includes some representative images to give you a sense of what some of those uses might look like. So you can go ahead and take a look at some of those if you have questions about what the intention might be, what it might look like visually. And those are just ideas, obviously. Building upon the land use, future land use map is the idea of placemaking and the idea of preserving Lindon's identity and enhancing that and helping enhance the unique nature of the community. So in addition to the town center you see in the big asterisks there on 700 North and the 3 transit and commercial centers along State Street, there's a 4th kind of a node up there along Geneva Road and 700 North, which would be where the future TRAX line is planned. Some additional enhancements shown on here are gateways, kind of those blue stars, and those are intended to be at all of your major entrance points, and that could be expressed as art or signage or, landscaping, perhaps a combination of all of those to help, let people know when they are arriving in the city. You have opportunities at your interchanges, including a potential interchange there out on the west side there on I-15, additional opportunities for branding, and then overlaid on top of that are some enhancements for a few roadway corridors shown in the gray dash lines, like 2nd South, Center Street, and I believe 400 East. There's a few of those. And on top of that is your trail network, kind of these major spines that you have with the Heritage Trail, the Canal Trail, all of those linking your park system with some of these major nodes and community uses in the future. And there's some imagery in the plan as well to show you what some of those buffers and transitions might look like, some ideas for some of the community gateways, what some of those corridor treatments might look like along some of those roadways. And this element wraps up with 6 general goals that have individual policies and implementation measures associated with them. So again, establishing that land use vision to help guide your future decision-making, preserving the small town feeling, helping create a distinct and identifiable brand for Lindon, setting yourself aside from surrounding communities, providing places for the community to gather, and making sure that land uses are compatible and utilize buffers, and again, that all of your land uses match the vision and principles.
If I can just comment one more thing on that future land use map. I just want, like we've had, when we've sent out letters to all those who have a designation that may be changing, we tried to be clear that the future land use map is not a zoning map. And so the future land use map, so with a general plan, you're looking out 10 years. And so, for example, those nodes along State Street, those 3 nodes, that's something we want to study further. What is the commercial node actually going to look like in the future? We don't know, but we want to study it. So we identify it on a map, and then that's what we want to look at in the future. So so when someone comes in and so I just want to be clear that the zoning map is not changing at this point. This could direct some changes in the future, but this is not a zoning map. And so if we made any changes to the zoning map, we would look at this map for some guidance. But again, this is looking to the future and how we may want to make any changes.
Okay, the third element is transportation. This map summarizes your existing and proposed street network. And as you can see, most of the city is built out. All of those solid lines are your existing streets. There are a few dashed lines that represent streets or highways or roads still to be developed, but those are pretty minor in comparison with what you have in place. The alternative transportation map overlays your existing trails and bike facilities with your existing and planned transit and transportation options in the future. So you can see where your trails are in relationship to track and the front runner and some of those future nodes. And the goals in the transportation chapter include providing those opportunities for development that are supported by major transportation routes and interchanges, establishing a multimodal network that is also linked with an interconnected network of trails and pathways, giving people a lot of options for how to get around and through the city, ensuring that your transportation options align with your existing, land use and character, trying to maintain the integrity of your existing neighborhoods, improving the design and appearance of the roadways within the community, ensuring that safety and general transportation needs are met, and then also that these facilities are adequately funded. The moderate income housing plan was developed in the fall and submitted to the state. It's a state required element, and this plan integrates what was already produced for the state back in the fall. So the main housing vision for the city is to encourage a range of quality housing types and opportunities for individuals and families through all stages of life and incomes while continuing to maintain the city's unique rural character. And the state requires that each community adopt a minimum of 3 strategies to help provide moderate income housing options in the community. They incentivize communities to select a couple of additional options, which Lindon City has done, and I believe that's in exchange for transportation incentives and funding.
So we did not change this plan. Lisa made it look a lot nicer from my just using Word capabilities, but we did not change anything from what you reviewed in 2022 on this plan and sent to the City Council.
So the 5 strategies that the city has adopted include creating or reducing regulations related to internal or detached accessory dwelling units, eliminating impact fees for ADUs, demonstrating a utilization of moderate income housing set aside to create or subsidize moderate income housing, reducing, waiving, or eliminating impact fees for moderate income housing, and then implementing zoning incentives for moderate income units in new developments. Looking at economics within the city, working with the committees, these recommendations kind of stemmed out of that process. So that includes diversifying your commercial options along State Street, which we've already talked about, looking at attracting quality businesses to the city, including experiential type businesses, continuing to promote home occupation businesses within the community, and also businesses that generate sales tax. Prioritizing 700 North for economic development, and also making sure that that gets developed in a way that creates this iconic gathering place for the community and an iconic corridor, and also basing your decision-making off of there's a decent number of recent studies that have been completed or are underway. So you have a good basis to make decisions. Future development opportunities in the city are focused on 700 North, Canopy Business Park, and State Street. And redevelopment opportunities in the community include the Second South Corridor and Geneva Road on the west side. The 3 primary goals to come out of the economic development element include strategically planning for attracting businesses and developing businesses within the community, creating a resilient economic development plan and diversifying your tax base, and also helping to create economic opportunities for your residents. So parks, recreation, trails, and open space. You have a couple of plans that already paved the way for this element. So this was another one where we were integrating existing planning documents into the general plan. In 2020, you completed a parks, recreation, and trails master plan. That plan establishes a vision, which is shown here. This includes, kind of summarizes your existing and proposed trail network and its relationship to your existing parks, with some locations for potential parks as well. The bike ped plan was completed a little bit longer, a few years ago beyond that in 2015. And this is focused on the bicycle and pedestrian network within the city. So looking at on-street facilities and separated pathways, this plan shows their kind of phased approach to implementing the bike network. They also do include a pedestrian facilities map in there. So reviewing those two plans and looking forward, we established 4 main goals for parks and recreation. That includes using an inclusive approach to parks, recreation, and trails so that you're providing for the needs of all residents, people with all abilities and interests, providing unique park and recreation opportunities within the community, implementing the goals and recommendations in the parks master plan as well as the bike ped plan, and then using community resources prudently. Environment and sustainability is the 7th element in the general plan, and takes a close look at kind of natural characteristics and features within the community, including slope, topography, where you might have steep slopes that can affect development, where you have seismic conditions that need to be taken into consideration, such as liquefaction and fault lines, hydrological conditions, looking at depth to your water table, flood areas, those sorts of considerations. And the goals in this chapter include protecting those natural resources, mitigating natural hazards, and ensuring that Lindon develops in a way that is sustainable and resilient. The 8th element is one of the new elements required by the state, and you are kind of helping pave the way, creating one of the first water use and preservation elements in the state. So hopefully this will likely evolve as the state fine-tunes requirements. But this takes an in-depth look at your current strategies and where you want to be in the future. This graph summarizes your population growth, which is the line across the top. The green bars show your water use in gallons per capita per day. So right now, 2020, you're about 5.7 million gallons per capita per day. And if you continue with the current use rate, by 2050, you would be at 6.5 million gallons per capita per day. The beige columns represent the state's regional water conservation goals. So if you can implement some changes to reduce your water use and implement that into the future as you grow, you can actually reduce your per capita water use below the current level, even with your additional population that's projected. And the city has a number of existing water conservation measures already in place. The plan outlines some additional proposed measures to help meet these water conservation goals. And the overall goals for the chapter include, establishing your vision for protecting water resources, rights, and systems in the city as you develop, reducing unnecessary consumption, supporting the concepts and ideas already established in your water conservation plan, which was completed in 2019. And is that a 5-year cycle? Yeah, so 5 years will be the update of that water conservation plan. And then supporting the regional water use goals and collaborating not only with the region but with the state on targets. The plan wraps up with a list of catalytic projects, and there are, I believe, maybe over 60. There's a significant number of them, and so what we've tried to do is prioritize to help the city decide, which projects are most important or most achievable in the near future, and then also looking out into the future. So there are 3 project types: planning and design, programming and monitoring, and then design and construction. And so each item is summarized on the left there with an icon that indicates which chapters each item will help you meet the goals of. The scoring criteria to create the priority was based on cost, impact, and ease of implementation. And so through this scoring process, we've helped kind of sort items to the top that will have, a lower cost, a higher impact, and will be easier to implement. And of course, this isn't set in stone. This is just, a guiding approach for you to help implement the vision in the plan. But that is the essence of the update.
Mike, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
No, I'm really grateful to go through this process. It's been a good learning process over the past year. I've learned a lot more about the city, and it's been good. I think I really appreciate Landmark Design. They have been really good to work with our general plan committee and walk us through this process, and we look forward to eventually having this adopted. So.
And I appreciate that too. I've sat in those committee meetings and watched your level of professionalism and skills in putting this together for the city. But it was based on a large group of citizens that were selected from the city to make input and to kind of put forth what the city's desires are for moving forward. So I appreciate that very much. Now, as far as this is a public hearing, and before we bring it back up to the commission, and thank you, Lisa, are there citizens here that would like to make input or have questions on this? Okay, the back. And if you would come forward and speak into the microphone and give us your name.
I don't like any of you people.
I'm sorry.
Period. Because bottom line, you're taking my retirement and making it yours. This is not about you. This is about me. I bought ground in order to retire. I tried to retire. You turned them down 4 times. I am not going to be the one that stands by. I've been nice. I'm done. You're going to find out what a fight's all about. Thank you for your time, and hopefully you make the right decision.
Thank you.
Can you state your name?
What was your name, sir? We just need that for the record.
Yes, please.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, go ahead. And if you could come up and give your name and...
Appreciate your time. My name is Deanne Terry, and my husband and I moved into Lindon in about 1975, and we initially lived over on 500 North behind the school bus garage, and in 1978 we moved to Lakeview Road, and we now have 2 homes next to each other on Lakeview Road. And I think many of you are familiar with the challenges that we are facing right now. Behind us is a 3-acre parcel that was landlocked and it now has access. And I'm sure you have seen pictures of what is happening in our backyard. And I applaud the plan for Lindon City. We moved here because we wanted to raise our children in a wonderful place. And that little bit of country, we used to get on our horses and ride across the highway and right up to the mountains, and that's what we loved, and that's how our children were raised. They didn't have to go down to the mall to have fun. And all of our neighborhood, Steve was part of our neighborhood, and that's what we appreciate about Lindon. And I think the mayor has a vision for Lindon, and we appreciate that. And as I look at this plan and see the homes that are in Lindon and the yards and the beautiful spaces, well, I no longer have that in my yard. And in my backyard, there's been 46 loads of junk that has been hauled in on a 3-acre parcel. And the city is working very hard to correct that plan, and I appreciate that. But I don't think you have any concept of what is happening in that space. And Percy Johnson is here. He lives 2 houses down from me. And you just have no concept of what is happening. These huge pieces of old, rusty, unusable equipment being brought in and put within 2 feet of our property line and just dumped off. I mean, 46 loads, and on Saturday, here came a load with 3 more rusty, bent, torn pieces of farm equipment that could never be used. And I'm talking about manure spreaders and old tractors that will never be used. And I know that Mike and Jacob have been working on this, and there is a little progress in some area, but I mean, after a little progress Saturday, then here comes a trailer load of junk and in the broad daylight dumped behind our fence. And a lot of it has been brought in after dark. We see lights back there, and then we see old pipe that could never be used. And I would just like to invite all of you to just take a minute and just drive down the road and park in front of my home. I live on 533 West Lakeview, and we also own the home at 513 West Lakeview. We try to keep our yard nice. I have never before called the city and made any complaint on anything in all the years that I have lived here, and I have loved living here. And I've never called the police until after 10 o'clock one night. I had to call the police with heavy equipment in our backyard with lights flashing and dirt flying. You know, finally at 10:15 at night, I called the police and said, can you do something about what is happening in our backyard? And I think we're being taken advantage of, and unless you see it, you have no idea what is going on and what we have to look at in our yard. And I would just appreciate it if each one of you would just take a moment and come down and see what is going on, and then to hear the explanation that is being given that is just a bunch of bull, and it's not true. And the city is being led along like this company has done forever. It's being used as a commercial. It's more in the line of a commercial farm zone. And it's just time for a change. And I would just really appreciate it if we could get some help in getting this resolved. And I really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments. You've got a difficult situation. Okay, as far as, okay,
I just have a few questions and a couple comments.
okay, and your name is, sir?
I'm Michael Cootley. I actually represent the owners of the property on 700 North, the
Okay,
future town center.
okay,
So I had talked to Mike a little bit before the meeting, and what you guys have envisioned for that site and what we would like to see for that site are, you know, identical. We would love to see exactly what you have planned there. What we have to overcome, you as the city and us as the owners of the property and of course the sellers of it, is what we've created there over the past 6.5 years. We've had numerous opportunities to do different things, some that met with the, you know, the zoning, and some things that obviously didn't. But in the time span that I've been listing the property, I've had it either all under contract or partially under contract with numerous buyers over those years. But we've created a little bit of a bad reputation for the site. A lot of developers won't even talk to me about it. I'd mention where it's at, and they go, "Oh, we don't want to do anything there." So we have a little bit of a bad reputation. We've had 3 large developers, some larger than others, you know, come in and want to do things. Evergreen, you know, we know the experience with them. They, you know, they thought that they were doing everything according to the people I talked to, and obviously they didn't do everything that the city wanted, and of course they went away. Vertical development, you know, we all know what happened with that, and I still don't understand it, but we know what happened there. And then, of course, the guys that tried to bring in some hotels that didn't meet with the standards of the city, we'll put it that way. And of course, they were told to please leave our city. So with all those things happening, you know, I've got a little dilemma on my hand. Now, I want to bring what you guys want. I would love to see that happen. Believe me, I really would. I would love to see something like that there. What is the city going to do to help me accomplish that? Because at this point, I've done every single thing in my power. The sellers have done every single thing in their power to do this. But what can we expect from the city to help us accomplish this goal? Because ultimately, it's the land that we need to sell, but we need to sell it to somebody that is going to use it the way you want it or develop it the way that you want it developed. And I'm not getting a lot of feedback. We get a lot of no's. We know you can't do that, no, you can't do that. But we don't get, hey, you know, I don't think that would work for us, but maybe if we did this or tweaked that, could we possibly make that work? I would love to have a discussion back and forth with the planners, you know, whoever that would need to be at a meeting of that nature and get these ideas across. Not just, no, we're not going to do that. No, you can't do this. Because that's what we continuously hear is the no's. But we don't hear the ideas of, hey, if we got this, and reasonable ideas. You know, I've talked to a number of the city council members, and some people have reasonable ideas, and some people just say no. And of course, the no's do not help anybody in this room accomplish what we're trying to do. Now, I get it. It'll get you, there's things you don't want there, and I get that. I understand that. But there's certain ways to get to the point of what you guys want for there. A town center is a mixture of a number of different things. You know, there's retail in there, there's probably some office in there, there's, you know, probably restaurants. There's, you know, that's what we're hoping for, and we're trying to push forward a little plan right now so that we can hopefully sell some lots along the road to try to, you know, entice other users that, you know, into the area. So, I mean, we've got some different ideas that we're trying to work through on our side, but I need some help from the city, from the planning committee, from city council.
Well, usually what would happen as far as this commission would be that those ideas would be brought to our full-time planning staff.
And we're working on that right now.
And filtered through the staff and then brought to us.
I know the process.
So as far as us just being able to
But-
give you that information.
I know
at
you
this
can't.
meeting,
I know you
that-
can't, and that's not what I'm asking. What I'm asking is open your minds a little bit more.
Okay.
Well, what does that mean? Does that mean say yes to multifamily housing?
I'm not saying even
'Cause I
multifamily.
think, yeah, that's been the
That's
hangup.
been one of the pressures that I've gotten from every developer that wants to do this to make it pencil for them. That's one of the things. But that's not all of it. It's not all of it, you know.
So, well,
I even
you
threw
asked the
the-
question, what do
Well,
we want?
I was looking at the IBI drawings of, and it's in one of your, it's actually in this, you know, with, Mike's got the drawing. You got that drawing you could throw up there?
I don't have it right offhand. I'll have to
Yeah,
get it.
It was
and I'm not
page-
sure that,
34.
I mean, I'm not
Yeah.
sure that this meeting is the time
Oh, I
that we
know.
could
I get
really
that.
move forward with that.
And I'm not asking you to. What I'm just simply asking is, can we have an open discussion? Can we not be told, no, you can't do this until you bring us that? Because unfortunately, to bring you what you want, you know, these guys won't bring it until they have something else. So I'm stuck in a catch-22. I can't get this without getting that, and I can't get that without getting this.
And I do
and
know
that's
the
been
city's
my-
being very selective on what goes on that corridor.
And I'm not the one buying it. I'm not the one putting the money out there. It's the developers that are doing it. And they don't want to bring anything to the table that they don't feel. And I've got a real estate agent here on the council. He understands this. He's been doing this for a long time. They don't want to do anything that's not going to be a healthy development and going to, you know, thrive. And honestly, the city shouldn't want that either. Because what good is a bunch of vacant buildings on a site, especially at the entrance to the city that you want to be the
Right.
town center?
Yeah.
So,
Well, we appreciate your comments, you know, and like I said, any proposals.
Oh, I get that.
That type of thing have all got to go through city staff and be filtered, and so,
I just see
I
this beautiful,
appreciate
this
those.
plan for the
Yeah.
town center. I see that, you know, and you guys are going to implement that. And it just lays another restriction on us that we have to try to figure out how to make happen. And I know you guys want that to happen. We would like to see that happen.
okay,
I want some help from the city,
okay.
and I'm making that happen, how we're going to work
Okay.
together to make
Well-
that happen.
Can you define what help means? Do you want us-
Feedback,
We
feedback.
I think you get feedback.
We get tons of feedback, Mike. To say we don't give you feedback is disingenuous. I mean, you came to us last week and met, and you just brought a residential project that had 200 residential units. I mean, you know, of course, they're just gonna say no, because that doesn't meet the vision, but
Right.
give us how you're going to implement it. Bring us a plan. Don't,
Okay,
you know,
which is what I'm
because
trying
the
to
city,
do.
because the city didn't want two low-budget, crime-ridden hotels to come in, we said no. You know, you never had Evergreen on your side of the street, it was on the south side of the road. Evergreen only wanted to do multifamily, they didn't have a plan for commercial, all they wanted to do was multifamily. The other developer you brought in, he wanted to do 250 residential units and maybe some commercial along the bottom. I mean,
His
it
project
works
was a
both
complete
ways here.
plan, I know, but his project was a complete plan with all the commercial, all laid in place, and
and as the city did due diligence on his past projects, we had no confidence that we would get that
but
project.
it's,
And so,
do you guys get that this is a repetitive thing with every single commercial
and bring us a
developer
good
out there?
project. I mean, we
Well,
understand.
okay, what,
Okay, well, I don't think this is
we'll
a
have it,
place
Mike,
that
me
we
and
need
Mike
to
will have a
have this
discussion on it.
discussion.
We'll have a discussion.
And you can have that discussion with our
At
plans.
an impasse of what a good project is. I don't
Okay.
know what a good project is. I know what it is on my side of the table, but I don't understand what it
Okay.
is.
We approved a gym, but it's not the city's fault, he couldn't
No, it's
finance
not.
it.
It is totally not your fault.
We subdivided it for 3 lots over there, it's not our fault that Everlights decided not to build an office building there, or the gym decided not to go in. Enium still bought the property, we look forward to their 5-story office building going in at some point, but, you know, I feel like the city has, I think we can sit down and still work on some visioning over there and try and get you some more direction, but
That's what I'd love to have, and that's what I'm asking for, is some direction from you.
Well, thank you for your
Okay.
comments to us. I think as far as tonight, I don't think we can move forward on anything other
I'm
than.
not asking you to, and I'm not
Other
presenting
than
anything.
just, what we're addressing tonight is the general plan.
And that's
for the
all I'm
city.
asking for. I just see another, another situation coming up to play and wondering where, what the city's going to do as far as your side of it to help us
Right.
bring to you what you want.
one comment
I
I
think if
did,
you think that is the city going to give in, probably
I'm not
no.
asking that.
In my recollection, I think we're 2 for 3 of projects that have come in.
Yeah.
Of serious projects that have come in on this commission. I'm not privy to all the other pitches you may have made to the city or clients you may have made to the city for projects. We're just not aware of those because they haven't come before us. But
We've worked a lot more with city council than the planning commission, because we figured, the city council is going to be the final say on that, and of course.
well, I'm just
we-
not sure what's been turned down
And
or not.
maybe we kind of overstepped that one. It wasn't my pick to do that. A lot of the developers went straight to city council to get the support of the city council. I know Mike Miller did with his thing, and I don't believe we had ever had even a single commission meeting.
Appreciate your comments tonight, and we'll watch for other things that come to us.
Okay, I appreciate that.
So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioners, I do have one
Go ahead.
comment on this, though, while we have this up.
Sure.
There's been some discussion between myself and the mayor and our city administrator the last couple of days about maybe changing that name from town center to something else. We have had some developers say, oh, are you gonna move City Hall there? Are you gonna build a library? And so we'd like to maybe work with Lisa in coming up with a different name for
Okay.
that. So maybe it's a commercial center, or
Or a
it's
square or something.
something, if you're okay with that, when,
Oh, yeah, that's no problem.
or,
I've always loved Lindon Village. I just like
Linden
So-
Village, I think is.
or
nice.
commercial village or something like that, but we would like to look at changing that name.
Okay, Yeah. Well, I'm sure we don't have a problem with looking at a name change for it.
Okay.
Okay, is there anyone else that would like to address, make comments, sir? And if you give your name, please?
My name is Bill Fairbanks. Actually, just maybe some questions more than comments, but
Sure.
I didn't see a whole lot of anything down by the lake as far as developing that. And I've watched what Provo City did, and probably more the Lake Commission than anything, where Provo River comes into the lake, and how they've, I think they've done a beautiful job there. They've got trails and stuff like that. I think there are a few trails that kind of go through, but maybe I'm naive. When I go down by the lake, I see the dump and a harbor that I hope I don't offend somebody, but I don't know why they call it a harbor, because half the time you can't get a boat in or out of it. But I just wonder if maybe a little more emphasis could be put in that area, just for developing it, and not that I remember this, but I've heard rumors that there was quite a nice park down there at one time, and I'd like to see that done. And yeah, you would think that I would be here for other reasons and probably don't have a whole lot to say about anything else other trail systems and parks. And people, and by the way, I recognize some faces here, and I'd like to say hi. I almost recognize one. Anyway, I've had enough experience in developing to know that the residences or the density kind of drives the development, but you can also get density to drive parks, and the more parks you have, 200 South is going to be a beautiful road when it gets done, if I understand that right, and if it's done right, it'll be a beautiful avenue, or whatever we want to call it. But the parks, the swimming pool's great here. You've got a great city building. You've kind of got a center of town here that I love. And by the way, I live here. Used to live in Wallsburg, but I saw the light. So anyway, that's my comment. And I have worked with Mike a little bit and talked to him and looked over some of the things that are being planned here. Quite frankly, when 10 years are up, I may not be here to sit around. Maybe 30 years I won't be. So anyway, thank you for all you do. Thanks.
Thank you.
Can I say something?
Sure.
Paul Erkenbrack.
Okay,
I'm down on the tail end of Anderson Lane.
okay.
Until this gentleman talked, I didn't really have a question, but speaking of trails and parks and roads and so forth, Ivory Development has put the light residential area down at that park, or down at that, where your park is down there. But I've noticed in the last year, we're getting more and more people coming up on the city's right-of-way out of the park area in possibly a dangerous situation with trucks coming down there and so forth. And I just was wondering, is the city planning to finish the asphalt, the curb? What are they doing down there against the main big wall that Ivory's put in, down to the pump station? And the reason I've asked this is because this year the flooding was so intense, my 10 acres were like a lake. And they've come in and they've dug a ditch, but it doesn't match what they have done at the starting of their development. And I don't know if any of you have driven down there, but I've been there since '79 with my stuff. I try to take care of the things, but it's something that's just left and I can't get any answers. And then the concern with your pedestrians coming up there where it really isn't a right-of-way to walk anyway. So there's a problem there you need to look at.
Mike, do you have any more information on that than what we could offer?
Yeah, Mr. Erkenbrack, are you referring to this little road right here? This would be, I think this is your property, right next to the freeway. Let me go to an aerial photo.
I
think
appreciate
that
it.
might be better.
Yes,
This one here?
yes, that there one, and then back up to where Ron Anderson lives. There's no pavement there. That's like everybody stopped doing,
Yeah,
and I don't know whose responsibility it is or what there is there, but there is a problem there. Especially down at the park where people are coming around now with their dogs or walking, and you just don't know, it isn't a place. You got a whole trail around a park. But that they, and I'm like they are. I want to investigate everything, and do things. But
Yeah,
it's just a concern that I have.
Are they walking from that trail in the park over by you? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, they're coming out of the park right where the pump station is, which is city property, coming around, then walking clear back up Anderson Lane.
Oh, I didn't even know that was connected. I live down there.
Yeah, but I'm
Oh,
just
it's not
worried that
connected.
somebody's gonna come down there with a car or a truck, because they get lost all the time.
Yeah.
There's gonna be a problem eventually, or going into the waste ditch there that carries water out. And then while that's on my mind, there's one other thing. We were required or asked to put a 2-foot pipe in to take drainage that's coming down out of the fields. The city has put a 16-inch pipe in where all the 2-foot water's going, and I'm not understanding why you go from a big pipe to a small pipe. It don't make sense, and that's why water backs up, floods everything.
So, Mike,
I'm saying.
who would
so
that be referred to?
I'd like, if you could, share your number with Mary.
Okay.
And then I'll bring this up with the other department directors or city directors and then I think we'll probably have Juan Garrido, he's the Public Works Director. It'd probably be best for him to reach out to you and talk about the piping and.
Well, I know they've been very good to work with.
Yeah,
It's just something that's extended there for time-wise, and no one seems to have any answers on what's gonna happen.
yeah. I don't think, I don't think there's any plans to pave this road here over to the pump house. These roads, so Anderson Boulevard was paved
Right to there.
to there. So the rest, the transportation plan shows this eventually coming through and connecting to 1400 West. But those won't, that won't be paved until these other properties all decide to develop.
What about the property that they've already graded to the pump house? They put curb and gutter down to one corner. They've
Yeah.
never finished it clear to the pump house on one side for water protection. The back side of all those houses were totally flooded this spring. There is a problem there that probably needs to be addressed.
That'd be a good conversation that we have with Juan and also probably Noah Gordon, our city engineer.
I have talked to them. They don't know what they're doing just yet.
Okay. Well, let me make that connection and we'll talk about that.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Appreciate it. Okay, is there anyone else? We'll take another comment. Otherwise, we'll close the public hearing and bring it back up to the commission. Okay, and if you could give your name, sir?
Sure. Landon Harsh. I live out kind of on the northeast side of Lindon. I'm really inexperienced in these proceedings, so I don't know if what I'm asking for is reasonable. I would like to understand better traffic flows through that new development area on 7th North and what's being considered to keep it reasonable going through there.
Is that the Anderson Farms or?
The new city center.
I think just
all
along.
that area.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I mean, if there's already materials on that, I'd just like to be pointed to them. I just see that as being a real big slowdown area once that's all fully developed and everything. I'd like to understand what the city's doing to think outside the box, keep things moving through there.
And I'm gonna turn that to Mike, but probably UDOT has a lot to do with that, right?
Yeah, it is a UDOT road, and so they control the traffic on that and any improvements. later this summer, they should be installing a new traffic signal at 2000 West and 700 North. So that'll, right now they're widening from about 2000 West to the west. They're widening it so they can do 3 turn lanes onto Pleasant Grove Boulevard, so it doesn't back up as far.
That's a big bottleneck right there.
And so they'll add a light right there. You can see Pleasant Grove has just realigned this 1300 West to connect, or to line up with 2000 West. So that'll be the first light that goes in there. And then the next light, once it warrants it, so that means once UDOT studies it and determines that a light is needed, the next light would go in here at 700 North and Anderson Boulevard right here. So that's pretty much what's planned for now. They have, the UDOT and UTA about 2-3 years ago did a study called the Central Corridor Study, that the buses that run between UVU and BYU, those longer buses, they've talked about running that from Lehigh to University Mall. And so it would come down here through 700 North, hit State Street, and then go down to University Mall. That's a long-term project. The price tag is quite high, but that's something they're moving forward with.
Okay. Does that help you?
It does, yeah. And then the only other thing I'd add is I'd second more focus down on the Utah Lake area. It's very industrial looking right now. I think it could be better.
Is that like attractive to you at this time, or?
No, I sure wish they'd dredge it, but that's a whole nother conversation.
There may be a problem, yeah.
Could I talk about that for 1 minute?
Yes, please.
So Lindon doesn't have a huge area along Utah Lake. So we do have the Lindon Harbor, but that is owned by the state of Utah, so they control that. The city does have this little narrow stretch right here that the mayor and our parks director just did a master plan for. And so we plan on improving that. I don't think I've got the plans that I can pull up real quick, but they've looked at doing some pavilions there, a dog park, I think a little urban fishery pond. And so the mayor's actively looking for funding to put that new park in down there. The rest of this is, this is the transfer station, which is very industrial. The rest of this is pretty much owned by UDOT. It's a wetland mitigation bank. So any of the stormwater that comes off I-15, this is where it's banked right here, and it can't be developed. And so our shoreline is quite small just in this area here. So our biggest improvements can happen with this park and then the harbor. We also have funding to finish out the Lindon Heritage Trail. Right now it stops, I think about in this area here.
Yeah.
And so it will continue on to go down to the park and the harbor. So you'll be able to take that from the lake to the foothills when it's completed. And then I know with Landmark's plan, they've suggested also connecting it over here more to Anderson Boulevard, or Anderson Farms development. One other improvement in this area, UDOT is currently studying. They want to look at doing a new interchange right here at 2000 West. And so what their initial study, what they're looking at is it would be an off-ramp right here at 2000 West, and you'd be able to exit off to 2000, or they would have a frontage road continuing on over to Pleasant Grove Boulevard. And then same here at 600 North, it'd be an on-ramp. You'd have a frontage road to get on here, and then get onto the freeway here at 2000 West to try and help reduce some traffic impacts there. I think that's one of the busiest interchanges in Utah County. So So a few improvements long-term that they're looking at in that area. I think having this new interchange at 2000 West, again, it's a number of years out, but that'll really help economic development to get it closer here with an off-ramp, to have it on our 700 North corridor.
It'll be the Lindon exit.
Yeah, yeah.
When did you say that light will go in on 2000?
I think it's this fall, when they're done with the
That's
improvements.
your area down
It
there.
is. Well, when you have a 16-year-old trying to turn left onto 700, it's a little scary. I know, I live down there. It's scary
Yeah,
for us.
I believe it's part of the whole widening project.
So Mike, north of the area that UDOT is your overflow ponds, it looks like those ponds continue up into,
Just this green line right here.
but so what are the ones to the left that's in the gray area, that's out of our city limits? What is that's also more of that? That's restricted access?
You've also got the Timpanogos Special Services District over there. That's the sewer plant.
Okay.
Let me pull up an aerial photo.
So there's really not a lot we can do down there.
Yeah, we don't have a whole lot. Like I said, we've basically just got the marina and the new park that will go in on this property. Vineyard's putting their public works building in right here. And then you get over here, and this is all American Fork City with the sewer plant and things. The Vineyard Connector Road, eventually that will come up 2000 West here. It's planned for, it changes, but it's planned for either a 4 or 6 lane parallel highway to I-15. So it comes up here, makes a turn, and then comes down 400 north and connects over into Pleasant Grove and American Fork.
Thank you. That was educational for all of us.
I think we all wish we could do more with our lakefront, what we have there.
Unless there's anyone else right away, we're going to go ahead and close the public hearing, and we'll bring that back up to the commission.
So moved. Close.
Okay, do I have a second?
I second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the voting is unanimous. Okay, as far as discussion among the commissioners, do you have questions? Do
I
you
have
have
two
concerns?
questions on two different parts of the plan.
Okay, okay.
Maybe we can pull it back up. Could we get to that section that talked about affordable housing for a minute?
Yeah. There's so many documents I have up here.
Yeah. While you're getting that, the question I have is, there were some things that were recommended to encourage affordable housing, forgiveness of impact fees and things like that. Were those things dictated by the state legislature, or were those things that other communities are doing, or your recommendation? Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, so let me go to those 5 goals real quick.
We discussed it, and I just can't remember.
Yeah, so these are the 5 goals that we
Choose from
approved.
23.
Let's see, sorry, what do I gotta do, Mary?
Lisa had it on a slide too.
Yeah, and I've got it up, it's not, there we go, okay.
Okay.
So these are our 5 strategies. We've already accomplished number 1 because we already had an accessory apartment ordinance. We've modified that, I think 4 times already since I've been here. The city council just eliminated impact fees for detached accessory apartments. They did that in March. So we've complied with number 2.
So when you say complied, is that required by the state?
With number 1, it is, yes. Now, the other ones, we get to pick our strategies. They
Okay.
give us a list of 24.
Yeah.
These are the 5 we picked.
Okay.
And so in August, I have to have a report to the state saying how we've complied with each one of these, or how we're going to be implementing them over the next couple years.
And that has to do with us being able to receive transportation funding, is that?
Yes, but it's a very specific type of transportation funding. I apologize, I don't remember the name of it right now. It's like TTIF, and it's specific types.
Roadway maintenance or?
No, because that comes a lot off the gas tax, and so it's a specific type of road fees that we receive. I can get you more information and email that to you tomorrow if you'd like. Now, I am talking to the city council. Man, sorry, I need to just zoom in. I am talking with them on next week about strategy number 4, about to reduce, waive, or eliminate impact fees related to moderate income housing. And so I'm talking to them about that to see if they, what they want to do about reducing impact fees. My recommendation is not to eliminate or waive impact fees, but to possibly look at reducing by a percentage what the impact fees would be.
Can you explain number 3? Demonstrate.
Yeah, so these have to do with RDA areas, so redevelopment areas. So like, for example, the city identified that where the Kia dealership is, we created a RDA area down there called the Lindon Park CRA, Community Reinvestment Area. And so the state requires that we take a certain percentage off the tax increment that we receive off that property. So we have to take a certain percentage off of the property taxes that we receive, and that has to go to affordable housing. And so same with 700 North. 700 North is in they called it at that time a CDA, Community Development Area. So we have to take a certain percentage of the property taxes from that and use for affordable housing. And so
When you say use for affordable housing, what is that? How do we use that?
So in our implementation plan in here, we'll start discussing that later this year with the city council. So how do we take that money and use it to help with affordable housing in the community?
Okay.
And so that's what this is to use those set-aside funds. It's some way to help with that. Now,
Offset impact fees.
yeah, and so our implementation plan, the strategy 1, 2, and 4, I wanted to take care of this year. Strategies 3 and 5, we'll start discussing later this year and then implement something next year.
Okay, thank you.
Well,
So the impact fees, the impact fees you're talking about reducing on number 4, those would be like the ones for the accessory dwelling apartments.
This would only be for, let's say a developer comes in and wants to build 20 units, but he wants to designate 2 of those as affordable housing. So we would look at possibly reducing the impact fees for those 2 units.
Okay.
well, and Mike, as I understand it, on 3, those taxes from those specific areas, those don't even have to be in our community. They just have to be.
One has to be, I think the 700 North has to stay.
It has to stay.
But the Lindon Park, where the Kia dealership is, that one can be, let's say we wanted to partner with Utah County Housing Authority.
Right.
We could use that money with them and partner with it.
So it doesn't even necessarily have to be in our own community as long as we are using those funds for
Right,
that
it depends
purpose.
on the project area. 700 North has to be used in
Okay.
that area,
Okay,
but Lindon Park could, because the state law changed over the years when those areas were created.
Okay, thank you. The other question I had was, can we go to that part about water conservation?
Mm-hmm.
I remember earlier in the year, or late last year, I can't remember, when we were talking about this, installing secondary water meters, and of course, that was
legislated.
Yeah.
There was something that we talked about that kind of implied charging. Is that still in here? I didn't see it as we were flipping through there.
Do you remember, Lisa? I think we do have one that talks about regularly adjusting water rates. I think, yeah, regular adjusting water rates, that second one.
There was something about charging for secondary water, and I thought in that discussion, we said, you know, do we really want to put that in the master plan or the,
Yeah.
I mean, it could come about, but why put it in print?
Can I research that?
Yes.
And,
That was a question I had.
yeah.
Okay.
If it is, I think we can adjust that so it's
Okay.
that goal, so.
Anyone else that has questions, or I sat through a lot of committee meetings on this, so I think I understand things pretty well, but.
I felt like the city did a really great job of involving the community. They
Oh,
were at
exactly.
the Lindon days, I remember being at the mayor's breakfast, they had people there, I think you were there, and they've had some other events. We've had great meetings with the community, so I'm kind of, you know, this gentleman that stood up and was,
Taken back with it.
and he was blowing off some steam, and I get that, I suppose, but I have no idea what his concerns were, and if he would have gotten involved or had an opportunity maybe to voice those concerns, we'd kind of understand where he's coming from, and, but I think the city's done a very good job through this process of reaching out to the community.
So, Mike, the one question I would have, you sent notices out to anybody that changed, multiple. Any concerns from any residents, or before, I know when, you know, the industrial people thought we were trying, any concerns on changing land use or any responses on that?
There were a couple, and let me, and Mary can help me with this, because she spoke to most of them. But let me pull that up real quick. Where's our aerial? So, one of them
A lot of the people that reached out, so no one reached out about that industrial piece. We're not really changing much with the industrial areas. We only had about maybe 5 people reach out. We sent letters to all of these properties, all property owners. Yeah, the only people that really reached out were people that were confused. They were thinking, you can't change the zoning without telling me, you know, but that's why Mike said, this isn't a zoning map, it's future land uses. It's very much future. So we had the guy like from the Wells Fargo, the guy who owns Wells Fargo property. We had the guy who owns the Sheridan furniture property just up the road. We had the lady who owns the Montessori Academy, and then I think, and then the guy who owns Avalon Apartments. So there are four people. And I explained to all of them that's future land use map, and that generally helped answer their questions. One of them, the man who owns the Sheridan Furniture Company, he asked if that could stay. Right now, the future land use map has it as mixed commercial, and we've changed it to transit commercial node because it's along State Street. He requested that stay mixed commercial. We didn't change it on the land use map just because it doesn't make tons of sense to have, I mean, it's not even zoned mixed commercial, you know?
It's this property right here on State Street.
Okay.
It's right next to Mr. Fairbank's property. He just left, but, so it's this one here. We do need to work with him a little bit on some cleanup back here in the back. But this property we included in that commercial node. He did say he'd prefer not to have it in the commercial node. He wanted it kept just commercial. I think it's commercial, I'd have to pull up the zoning map. I think it's commercial A, is that right? Or is it mixed commercial?
I thought it's zoned general commercial, but on the land use map, saying that
So
in
that
the
was just saying,
future,
in the future, it might have become mixed commercial.
yeah, and I mean, that use, it isn't quite like a general commercial use, maybe it is more of a factory, but in the future, what are we looking to see on that property? And is it meant to be,
Yeah, so his property,
also it is mixed commercial, it's a zone mixed commercial?
yeah, it's zoned mixed commercial, which is a little bit more of an industrial right on State Street.
And it's, the proposed in the new plan is the transportation
It's, yeah,
corridor or
it's,
whatever?
yeah, it's the commercial, transit commercial.
And what's, help me
Yeah.
understand that a little bit better. I know you said it once, but,
So there's a couple of things that led to that. Those are 3 location areas where the future bus rapid transit could go. Those are where the stations would go in that area. And then we wanted to look at where's our major intersections in the city and what could we do to improve that, the commercial look and commercial viability of those areas. And so that's what the transit commercial node does, is it looks at, okay, you're gonna have a future major bus station here, and then what can we do at this major intersection to improve the commercial?
okay, so if we go back to those changes then, if we can zoom back out, which ones were gonna be made into this change?
Oh, sorry, so this, no. There we go.
So the other one is there on 400, right? That's gonna be there's quite a bit there that's changing?
And that
To the-
one, in the current general plan, is already called out as a transit node. It doesn't identify exactly what properties, it's just a circle.
Okay, and then what's the lighter tan just west? Yeah,
That one?
That is residential, low density. That property in the current plan is split halfway between commercial and residential. You guys probably remember
Yeah.
this from.
And I think that's maybe what set him off a little bit.
I think that's what, so that's why I'm just trying to figure out what his big, I know some other plans have come before,
So we,
but just wondering if there was anything in the plan that's changing that dramatically, and it doesn't sound like there
no,
is.
so because the zoning on the property is half commercial, half residential, what our zoning ordinance says is that you go with the least restrictive zoning, which, so that would make it residential. So we're changing the map to coordinate with the zoning that it's residential then.
And so, I'm just trying to,
So now the future land use for that entire parcel, instead of it being sectioned off into commercial and residential, it's just residential.
just residential, okay.
And these 3 parcels right here, the map has it as commercial. And we're like, those are residential properties, they're nice homes, so we turned it back to residential.
Okay. What's the reddish color just north there?
That is general commercial. So those 2 properties
Yeah,
were.
you probably need to come talk in the mic, Mary, if you're gonna.
So those 2 properties are, it's the same issue. They are split in half, residential and commercial, so we're changing it to be fully commercial. That's the Wild Oak and Dastrip Auto. So,
What buildings are there now?
Wild Oak Event Venue and then Dastrip Auto, they're both zoned commercial. In the current land use map, it's just split in half. They're residential and commercial. So we're changing them to just commercial because they are commercial uses.
That's the use.
Yeah,
Yeah, so you can look, so what we tried to clean up a lot of properties too.
yeah.
So if you look on the Dastrip property, so for example, the Wild Oak, you can see it's half commercial, half residential. You can see on the Dastrip property, it's a
It's got
portion,
a
little bit of
small section.
residential and a bunch of commercial. So we just changed it all to commercial for both of those, because that's what the use is.
Okay, that's helpful for me just to understand what,
There's probably about 6 or 7 of those we tried to clean up.
as
Along State
we
Street.
make changes, to the master plan, that
Totally makes
affecting
sense.
people's property rights or whatever, or at least thinking what we'd like it to become, I think can be
Yeah.
sometimes concerning to people, and so I was just trying to understand those different.
Tried to send out 2 notices, one, about a month ago saying, hey, come talk to us, here's the change, we were very specific. And then another one to notice about tonight. But yeah, there was at least 6 or 7 properties we tried to clean up, and we'd like to just eventually change those on the zoning map too, so there's not a confusion.
Those were my questions, thank you.
Those are good questions. Anyone else with questions, or?
I was just talking to a neighbor who read through the master plan. He said, it looks like it's a little less country, but I understand with the current, situation. I've had conversations with him, so he was pleased with it, but, he said, thought it was well done. But he thinks it's a little less country, which reality I think it is, and the states almost force you that on us in a way.
Well, and population growth and
Yeah.
a lot of different things.
One thing we did work with Lisa on, and this came from feedback that Allen College gave to us and some other property owners, about the importance of preserving agricultural land. So we put this section in about preserving historic agricultural areas of Lindon. So you got Wadley Farms, Walker Farms, the Martell Orchards, and then the elk farm. Had to have a picture of an elk in here, so.
That's a great picture. Okay.
And Mike, I guess the other, that was mentioned, that the problem behind the houses, that's still just zoned residential, right? I mean, that's not changing at all in the plan. That Deanne Terry mentioned behind her home.
That's staying as residential, yeah. With that, we've, these issues take a while to do. Mr. Cook can bring in 11 containers over the weekend, but the city has to give him 28 days' notice to remove the containers. And so we did that. We then gave a second notice. So fines are happening now. They've been happening all last week and this week. And so he has,
Can you flip the speed on that one? I'm sorry.
Yeah, so let me
We may
pull
have
up
talked
a,
about this, and that might be why the storage container, isn't that why the storage container
yeah.
proposal is on our
Let me
agenda,
go to a,
right? Okay, so.
So the Cooks own this property right here, this diamond shape. They purchased one of the homes here to have access to it because it was a landlocked property. So he's starting to farm this, but he brought in 11 shipping containers. He excavated the entire, well, not the entire, but most of this property line here and built a retaining wall out of shipping containers. And then he started to double stack the shipping containers in order to put a roof on it because he was going to do his farm repair underneath the roof within the shipping containers.
When you say the Cooks, are we talking Cook's Nursery? Okay.
Yes. And so there's 9 of the shipping containers that were removed over the weekend. There's been 1 car that's been removed so far. Now, he has brought other things back in, and we will have to evaluate that. But he's gonna need to, repair the property line here, either slope it correctly or put in a real retaining wall. And so we're working through that process.
So it's residential zone, but he can use it agriculturally as long as he meets the requirements of keeping it
Yes.
under
Where is
repair.
Mrs. Terry's property?
I believe this is your home here?
We have an acre on lot number 5, that one, and then we have a half acre on
The
lot
one-
number
The
4.
one just above it.
And so, both of our backyards, are open to that property. And our west boundary is the ditch, and that west
That's where the
boundary
tree
is 354 feet that go along that west boundary. So all of that property along there, adjoins the Cook property. And that entire back property is lined with junk.
Okay. Okay,
But
it's,
see,
yeah,
some
Which
of
home
the-
did they buy to access it?
They bought
They
the
bought
Judd
lot number 2 of Creative
think it's
Estates,
this one.
which used to be Matt and Joni Judd's house. And one of the Cook brothers is living in that home.
okay. Well, it sounds like you are working with city, and they are,
Pardon?
it sounds like you are working with city staff, and they are taking the steps that they can take right now.
In
Well,
fact,
they did take out 8 of the containers. They placed one of them in the backyard of the home. There are 2 containers directly behind our fence line that are still there.
Okay.
And then it really is a boneyard for whatever is left over. They're treating it more like a commercial farm zone.
Okay. Well,
yeah, later this evening, we're actually discussing a new ordinance regarding the storage containers.
That's why we're here.
So
Okay.
hopefully that will help us to,
It isn't, the storage containers don't bother me as much as the rusty stuff that is seriously this far
okay,
from my property line.
okay.
And one of them is a huge orange combine used to thresh wheat with 3 large attachments.
Okay.
Please drive by and walk
Okay,
back there and take a look. You'll be shocked.
okay.
I
but
walked the
our only
property.
access would be through their yard or yours?
Well, we have 2 homes, and you're welcome to park out front and, I mean,
Okay,
I'll give you my phone number if you like.
okay. Well, we'll work
You
with
can
city
contact
staff
me,
on
and
that, yeah.
Please come, I have a home business
Okay,
at my home, and I
okay.
welcome a visit from any and all of you. You can have your meeting down there.
Well, thank you. Well, let's go ahead as far as the general plan. Are there any other questions or discussion, or are we ready for a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Just a second, let me get back in there.
Yeah,
Okay.
my only question's like what Rob said about, I don't want, the wording
Yeah.
within there not to
I
say
was
that,
gonna put that in on my
that we're looking to
Yeah.
start charging for secondary water.
Yeah, I don't think we have that in there.
I just wanted
but-
to look.
Not at this.
But I think we should look at any language that is, you
I
know,
move to recommend approval to the city council of ordinance 2023-9-0 as presented with that research and change on the water charging, if you would do that. You said you would do that.
Yep. And maybe just add in any technical changes
Right.
that we find, like the town center, you know,
Yeah.
stuff.
Okay.
I'd second that motion.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
I,
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the voting is unanimous, and that's a lot of work for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So, glad to recommend that to the city council and see if they have any other input. Thank you for being here with us. Okay, and Mike, I have a question. This is listed as item 6.
Yeah, sorry.
Is
I
it
meant-
5?
We were gonna have a different number, we're gonna have a number 5 as well, and at the last minute, we pulled it off, and so
Oh,
I
okay.
apologize about the misnumbering on that.
That's okay, I just noticed that when I was going through things. So it is actually item number 5,
Yeah,
and it's listed as an ordinance amendment portable storage container, but it's actually just a discussion tonight.
yeah, so we want to just present this to you as a pending ordinance. And so what that means is, it gets it on the record, it, will come back for a public hearing for it, but it gets it on the record. That way it notifies anybody that if they wanna bring in shipping containers, hey, there's this pending ordinance out there, you need to, you need to be aware of it, that the city's looking to adopt it.
But as far as this particular particular property with the Cooks, it can't go back on that.
It could, yes, because the city gave notices, we've went through our proper noticing channels, and he has not filed for any building permits for the shipping containers, and so that this would regulate that on the Cook property.
Okay.
How large is that property? How many acres?
3 acres.
Okay,
So,
well, we'll let you go ahead then.
okay, so I provided a lot of information to you on what other cities do. You can see this table. Some cities just strictly prohibit shipping containers altogether on residential properties. Some of them allow them, but they've got to be converted in so that it looks like a normal, so it matches the house. They require that it be reclad with a material on the outside so that it doesn't appear like a shipping container. I think there was one county, Daggett County, that requires you to repaint it to cover up any numbers, but so there's a number of cities that would allow it as long as it doesn't look like a shipping container. And so I kind of took, I thought, the best practices of some of those ordinances, but then applied it to Lindon City. And again, we haven't had much discussion about this yet, and so I'm hoping to really receive some feedback from you on how you feel about this ordinance. So that's why I'd work on it, then bring it back as for a public hearing. But so basically, it would allow one portable shipping container or portable storage container on per residential lot or parcel, and so any residential lot could have one. It does say the exterior of the container shall be clad in a material comparable to the on-site single-family dwelling, and so you would have to have a single-family dwelling if it's zoned residential to have one. You wouldn't be able to put it on a vacant lot unless it's a agricultural operation. You'd be able to have one for the agricultural operation. Letter C, you'd have to meet the setback requirements, so a minimum 10 feet from any property line. If it's on a side or rear property line, for an interior lot, if it's on a corner lot, it'd still have to meet the same setbacks as a regular accessory building, and that is 30. Is it even for accessory buildings? Isn't it 20?
Well,
Or-
if it's 12 square feet or less, so
Okay, or is it 12?
200 square
Less
feet,
than.
actually, 12 feet high is 200 square.
Yeah, so if it's less than 200 square feet on a corner lot, it can go to have a 20-foot side yard setback. If it's larger, then it'd need a 30-foot setback on a corner. In a commercial and industrial zones, so that the key for any of these really is if it's going to be there longer than 180 days. If it's going to be there for longer than 180 days, then it would need a building permit because we consider it permanent at that point. And so what the building permit means that it's got to be on a gravel or hard surface, gravel or concrete, and it's got to be tied to the ground so it doesn't move. It wouldn't allow for vertical stacking. It couldn't be put like in circulation aisles or parking spaces in commercial or industrial zones or fire access lanes. It couldn't be used as a dwelling. Now, if someone wanted to reclad it and make it look like, put all the money and work into it, you could use it as a accessory apartment, but you got to go through that process. You can't just have someone living in the shipping containers, what this section means.
But then they'd have to follow all the codes for
That's
electrical and everything.
Plumbing, yep.
What about, right now there's a trend where people are building homes out of multiple storage units from scratch. That's my home, that's my residence. But this is saying one. But then they will use multiple and then clad them and join them with the roof. Does this?
That would
the way
be
it's written,
okay.
Does this prohibit that?
No, that, if someone wanted to build a single-family home out of one, I've seen that done, and reclad, yeah, they could do that.
I would think if they, maybe rather than say one, it could be one or two if connected.
Well, and this,
I've seen them connected.
now this is just dealing with accessory buildings. This is, so in letter A here, the exterior of the container shall be clad in a material. Yeah, accessory building requirements of Title 1744-140 shall be met. So these are like your sheds. These aren't,
Well, I've seen them where they've connected them and then cut a passageway between them and it becomes one shed.
that would be fine if you make it into one. We'll just count it as one. It just need, just,
I think 3 is too many. I mean, it becomes too
Yeah.
big.
well, even if they brought in two, I would consider it one if they're connecting them together and they're walking between them. I would, that personally, that's what how I would interpret this.
Yeah, I just sometimes worry we make ordinances so restrictive that then 6 months down the road, somebody comes in with a unique situation and we're going, no, we can't do anything about that.
Yeah.
Because we have no latitude to.
Well, these are fluid. If someone wanted, if we felt it's a general need in the city, we'll change it as a city. If it's someone for their pet project, then we would typically have them apply to amend the ordinance.
If it looks nice, there's nothing different than bringing in a tough shed.
Correct. Yep.
Same with a home office is kind of similar to if they used it as a residential, right? Some people do home offices in their backyards. Okay.
Yes, as long as they'd have to reclad it.
Right.
Electrical and everything.
Mike, can I ask a question?
Let's ask the chair.
This isn't a public hearing, but we do accept public comment as far as a discussion.
With regard to the 3-acre piece behind me, because it was a landlocked piece and now it's kind of a flag lot, I understand that it does not have normal setback requirements. So with that in mind, if 2 shipping containers were allowed back there and there were no setback requirements, in my opinion, because he is accessing that piece of property from the north, in my opinion, the front of that parcel is the north side. And I can just see where possibly 2 shipping containers might be joined right behind my fence, where there are no setback requirements on that particular lot.
Is that true? There's
There's
setback
no setback
requirements?
requirements?
That there'd be a minimum 10-foot. That's what we.
Yeah, you'd have to have that.
But I don't see why, where there is access now, why there couldn't be a front and sides and a back determined on that particular lot.
It is a separate parcel, correct?
It is a separate parcel. They haven't joined them.
And it's not contiguous to any other parcel.
So I don't know the answer to that, Mike. Do you know the answer?
At a minimum, they'd have to have a 10-foot setback
Right.
from any property line.
But yet the ordinance isn't spelling out two either. It's spelling out one. We're just talking about hypotheticals in the future. I mean, there could come a situation where.
I can see where every single line is being stretched. And I think maybe there should be an ordinance where things changed with regard to a landlocked piece or a flag lot, where it could be determined what is the front of that. And in my opinion, the front should be whatever is the longest line parallel to the street where it is accessed, which is Lakeview Road, would be the natural front of that, which would require a 30-foot setback. To me, that is natural. And in our situation.
We don't attempt on a lot like, a triangular lot like that. We don't attempt to.
We don't have anything on a landlocked parcel like that, so we would just take the minimum requirements of a 10-foot
But
setback.
it's not landlocked anymore.
It is because it's
Well-
not joint.
There's no public access.
Right, but I can just see where that becomes stretched. And what's interesting is the other side of this property is Phil Brown and Scott Mitchell. And there's no junk parked next to Phil Brown's fence or Scott Mitchell's fence.
Okay. Well, what we're trying to do is discuss an ordinance that may give you some help.
But I was just bringing that up, you know, for those shipping containers, because I can see, like, there's 2 shipping containers remaining right now that are this close to our property line. And I can see where an ordinance could be stretched to where it's still going to be an ugly interference with our property.
Right.
Under this ordinance, there could still be one, and it would have to be set back 10 feet from the property line.
Back, it'd have to be permanent, it can't just be set on the property, it has to have
That's correct.
somewhat of a foundation or
Has to have
gravel or
building
something
codes and
tied it down.
Building permit. Because these shipping containers are 360 square feet,
Yeah.
and there were 11 of them.
And some of those are being removed, right?
9 of them have been.
Well, that's great. Yeah, that's great.
That's great.
So just to finish this up really quick, you know, if someone is remodeling their home, this would allow you to put it on the driveway while you're remodeling the home. After your final inspection, you've got 10 days to remove that. In emergency situations, say your basement floods, you can bring one of these in, put them on your driveway for 180 days. You can't use them for retaining walls, but they are allowed for temporary site plans. So they're allowed for your snow cone shacks, they're allowed for your, you know, corn cells or something like that. They would be allowed for those. There's some time limits within that temporary site plan ordinance that says you can have them from, you know, March to September or whenever. I can't remember the dates right offhand, but you can have them on that temporary basis.
What about, moving, like there's companies that will come in and actually sit that thing on your property, and you fill it up and then they come and haul it away? Is that accounted for in here as an allowable use?
I didn't, that'd be a good thing to add on there.
Because I know that there is companies that do it in that way.
I think any temporary use like that, I mean, there are companies that have junk where they bring one in and you fill it up and they take it and haul it away.
Yep.
I think that spirit of the law should, or rule should be okay.
Yes.
So, Mike, was this property we're talking about here, this evening, the catalyst, the only catalyst, or have we had other complaints throughout the city regarding shipping containers?
No, we haven't had other complaints. We've had people get building permits for them that have gone through the process, but this was kind of the catalyst because of that.
Get an ordinance in place.
Yeah.
And tell me again how that would work, where we're putting it in place now, or making sort of attempts at putting it in place now, how that could apply back to this property?
Yeah, because we told Mr. Cook that he had to apply for a building permit. We gave him 28 days to apply for a building permit, and he never did. And so he has no entitlements for those being there.
Okay.
And so I talked to Brian specifically about this because I thought you might have this question, and Brian said that he didn't receive any entitlements, he didn't go through with his part, and so this ordinance would still apply retroactively to those to that property.
Well, it would probably apply for almost anyone who had
Yeah.
one on their property or more.
Yes.
I know a couple of people that have 2 or 3 on their property just sitting, that obviously they didn't get a building permit for a storage unit,
Yeah, and we're gonna have to work that out, you know,
which is a good thing, I think. Bring it into compliance.
Because you're saying currently, if you want one, there's already a law that says you have to have a building permit.
that's correct.
Okay, and so that's what they didn't comply with. Okay.
So, I mean, there are some people that use semi-trailers for storage. They have wheels on them. Is that the difference between this and what if somebody put these storage containers on a set of axles or something, and just parked it there?
Yeah, I didn't even get in, I didn't write anything about that, but,
It's a good,
Well, I don't,
Yeah.
I'm just saying, I mean, there may be ways around that, but.
What if some?
but that is interesting that he brings up, you know, because you do see people, instead of getting a storage container, they just get a 56-foot
yeah.
truck and park it there. So that would be an end round around this.
Yeah.
So we might want to consider maybe language to prohibit, I don't know, what do you do, to long-term storage in a semi-trailer or something? I don't know,
I don't know, there are people who may legitimately have semi-trailers for business and.
True, true. I mean, for purpose of long-term
At some point, you're
storage,
infringing
yeah.
on some of their private property rights. but-
Correct.
So I think the goal of this is, we don't want to be too restrictive. You know,
Yeah.
we've been working with this for years. There's lots of people that have them. But we just want to make sure we're giving an ordinance that provides some good direction that will help people do it correctly, that won't have an impact on their neighbors with these. And so that, that keep property values up as well. And so, if you see things that you think are too overarching, I'd love to have your feedback on that. You could email me those comments as well.
There's no visibility requirements, because I could see a situation, it says hypothetically up on the bench, up against the open space. Somebody wants to put 2 or 3 up at the back of their property, and they don't affect anybody. No, they have no neighbors, they're not visible from the street, they're not, visibility was not ever considered as a element.
No, it was just making them architecturally try to be more compatible.
I'm not one that likes to restrict people in their use of their own property, but I have done a little bit of a turn on, I feel like that people should have the right to do things if they want, even though they're not common or not normal, but they can't infringe upon other people's rights, and visual aesthetics are other people's rights too. And so if somebody wants to use a semi-trailer in their backyard as a storage unit, maybe that would be okay, but they've got to some way visually screen it or something so that not everybody else is impacted by it.
Maybe
The
on,
way I feel.
maybe on that issue, if the semi-trailer is registered and the current registration is maintained on that, which you couldn't do with the storage shed, because it's not a
And in good
vehicle.
working order, yeah.
But if it never moves, then I think there's gotta be a catch-22 that says, hey, it's not a trailer, it's a storage unit. I just think that,
Maybe there's an
I've kinda harped on this the last
look
2
at your
weeks.
definition of storage container.
The residential.
The residential, I think
Yeah.
we got to, I don't like to force people, but sometimes it takes a little bit of nudging to
Yeah.
get them to make their places look aesthetically.
Well, and
Because you have a
it's-
handful of people that, not just a handful, but that group of people that just really don't care.
They don't care.
Well, a storage container could help with some of those situations, in other words, rather than it being strewn all over the lot, they could be tucked it in, tuck it
For
into
some
a.
people, it's just one more thing to add to the,
Yeah.
to the stuff. Okay.
Hmm.
Does that give you the feedback that you need to go ahead?
Yeah, and
Because
so
this
if
is
you-
meant to be a discussion.
Yeah, so if you wouldn't mind looking over it in the next, I probably won't bring it back to you for another month. I'm gonna be gone for the next meeting. Mary will be conducting it, and so, it may be another month before I bring this back to you. So if you'd please look over it and just give me any feedback if you see any.
Okay.
Is that available for public,
That's correct.
that
I can have Jacob email it to you.
Thank you very much, I appreciate that.
There are some cool things you can do with those.
There are.
Like a lot of people are putting them sort of parallel maybe 30 feet apart and then attaching them with a roof, which would be subject to a building permit, and we could, you know, the building department could put some requirements on that.
Multiples of it, you know, I think that's the thing, is if you,
I mean, how many accessory buildings can you have on a lot? You can have as many as you can fit in your building envelope, as far as I understand, so.
I don't know,
You can just, you gotta keep 40% of the rear yard in open space.
So as many as.
I mean, this was a cool little Starbucks. This is a teeny little property in South Salt Lake. It's just really small, but they used 2 shipping containers and made a Starbucks out of it.
Yeah.
Swig has one in American Ford.
Yeah.
And
Clark Concrete down on Geneva has a nice.
Rick Salisbury's built a whole mall out of it down at Strap Tank in Springville.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we have to be a little bit aware, we don't wanna be so restrictive that it excludes everything.
Yeah, so the retaining wall thing, that's a weird one to me, because if it's over a certain height, it needs to be engineered, and would an engineer pass off on that being a retaining wall, so is that?
Our building officials said they probably wouldn't, because over the time it's going to rust.
Yeah.
And so.
So that should not be an issue with him being approved for, using it as a retaining wall, because it's just not, engineering's not gonna pass off on that,
Right.
right?
okay, well, hopefully that gives you some good direction on it. Okay, and since there's not a motion, it's just a discussion, guess we're on to planning commission reports. And I don't really have anything, except I mentioned to Mary and Mike earlier that I did get quite a bit of input from residents this week on the cleanup of 400 North and very specifically the 400 North State Street corner. Yeah, where it's had the brick rumble from the building on that corner for a long time, and the weed cleanup. So, and then also on the corner of Locust and 400 North, you know, a lot of vehicles, and I did know that they had done some mowing of the weeds to get those down below that 6 inch restriction, but there's still a lot more work that should be done on that to meet even the 6 inch
Yeah.
weed.
With that one, I know our code enforcement specialist has given them a notice and is actively working with them. And so I'll have to check with him on what any remaining timelines are left on that and where he's at on that project. But I know he has given them a notice.
Okay, and what about the corner of 400 North and State Street?
I know we've reached out a number of times. We haven't given an official code enforcement notice, but
hard.
it's probably time, so.
Yeah.
Well, the property on Fourth and Locust, I drove by the other day, and there was tents pitched out back there. I don't know if those kids just playing, but there was actually tents pitched out back amongst the stuff, so.
Every day is something different.
Yeah.
I think that my suggestion would be sometime during this year, we need to just have a discussion on just a few things that we could do, maybe with some ordinances that would help beautify, you know, as part of the plan.
For residential.
Yeah, I know the mayor wants to do, like, you know, how we did a dinner a couple months ago. I know she'd like to do another one of those later in the year, and so maybe that'd be a good time.
That'd be a good time.
Okay.
Yeah,
I promised her I'd bring her some photos.
did you do it?
I'm gonna take them.
And then I have had questions as far as the Tim Clyde property that it had been referred to the ombudsman.
Yeah, it's been referred to the ombudsman, but that still doesn't change the timelines the planning commission put in place. He has to have phase 1 done by the end of the year, and then the remaining phases done by the end of 2025. That was the condition of approval, and so he's got still some time to. I'm surprised he's not working on it. I think he's hanging his hat on the property rights ombudsman, trying to decide something against the city, but Brian seems fairly confident in our case, so.
Okay. And that, do anyone else?
Well, I took the time, as some of you did, to tour Wadley Farms this week.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I thought it was, some people come in here and say things that aren't necessarily accurate. And I found that to be the case on some of the things that were said in our meeting last time. And so it was good to have some perspective, to actually see it in person. Like, for example, the light issue. They were really concerned about how the light might be polluting their backyard, and that was a very minimal issue. And I don't want to minimize what the gardeners are feeling and how it might be impacting them, but I just didn't see where there was really anything that Wadley Farms could change on that. So I thought it was, thanks for setting that up, I thought that was important for me to go and tour that. Coincidentally, I did drive down that road that the gardeners live on, and their yard is beautiful.
It is.
But that road does not look like Lindon at all.
Referred to as Little Chicago.
I was really surprised at
And
that.
this is what I'm inferring, or talking about, is there's some things that we could do in our community that upgrade it a little bit. Scary areas.
That's probably the worst in the city, because it's sort of on the dead-end street, and
It was very narrow, too.
it's tough to back in there.
But I mean, for them to worry about what's going on behind them, I'd be more concerned about what's going on in front of them on what some of their neighbors are doing. Like, that's where my complaints would be coming from, directed at.
And those are some of the properties that the colleges have actually purchased to try to clean up. So,
Somebody mentioned earlier that the gym pulled out. Was that because of the water, we had some water issues with them?
No, it was just, I think with interest rates and construction costs, he was in over his head. In fact, that real estate agent came and talked to me and said, hey, is there any way the city could help him out with maybe $1 or $2 million to get this project going? I'm like, no. So.
Funding is dried up for a lot of projects just because of the interest rates and whatnot, that a lot of people don't qualify anymore.
And it was a great project. This was his first time developing, and I think he was a little over his head on it. He came to us like last March and said, hey, I'd like to be under construction next month. And
Yeah, he was anxious to
He wanted to be in March.
get going.
yeah, and so he didn't realize how much he still had to do to get an engineer and get an architect, and so.
Budgets start coming together, and it doesn't help that interest rates go up, and costs are coming down a little bit.
Yeah, it would have been a great project, and hopefully he can still do it at some point.
yeah.
The Kia dealership's coming right along, isn't it?
It is, yep.
The building permit was just for, I think we finished one review, building department had a few reviews, but that building permit will hopefully be approved here soon.
The what?
The building permit for the dealership,
Oh, okay.
the actual
Yeah.
building, yeah. So that'll be exciting.
Well, and I could tell by your response to the developer on 700 North that was here that there's been many accusations made that aren't quite accurate.
Yeah.
And I guess this was a forum.
I guess, I talk to him weekly. We met, the mayor and I and Adam met with a whole group of his last week and talked about ideas, and so.
Regarding that, I learned tonight that I'm hated by somebody over some issue I have no idea. Did anybody have any idea what he was referring to?
That's the property, we actually recommended to the city council to go ahead. It's the one by the church.
Behind those ceremonies.
It goes to church and then turns the road, and we forwarded a recommendation, to put, I don't remember how many per acre.
It didn't pencil out because of the
Well,
water
the city
retention
council,
pond.
didn't approve the things we recommended.
They
And so-
didn't wanna go with some of the smaller lots or something, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Well, I
but-
thought the developer kind of backed out on that, or what?
Well, he did back out, but he couldn't make it work with
Okay.
the size of the road that needs to go in there, the city needs a detention area, and, you know, we're willing to work with him on that, but, it just didn't pencil
So
for him.
he was the owner of that property.
Yes,
yes. And,
he owns like 3 or 4 properties right over there.
yeah, he owns a couple of houses and stuff. And I feel for his situation, because it's a tough situation to try to develop that, but.
Yeah, I've heard recently some other developers that some local developers here that may take a run at it, so.
Good, I hope it works for him. I think it's just frustration.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of it is because of the big road that has to go through there.
Oh,
And then
yeah.
also, the city would like to have a retention basin there also.
I don't know if it's like we needed one. It wasn't a like, it was.
We do need
It's not
one.
like we wanted a park, we needed a retention basin.
Right, right, okay. Well, I don't have anything else. Do any of you have? And it was a very interesting tour at Wadley Farms, and I asked a lot of questions. Jared can tell you I
Yeah.
did, and asked him to show me a lot of different things. And even though I know there's some things that the city still needs to work with him on and make sure he comes into compliance on, overall, it's a beautiful area.
Yeah, unfortunately, I wasn't able to be there. I had another thing scheduled already that night. But hopefully his vision came across, which to me is pretty important. That doesn't negate the rules, but his vision, I think, is.
No, and there are things, like Mike said, there are things that the city still needs to work with him on.
Yeah.
Couple real quick things just for your information. That property on the corner of State Street and Lakeview, is it yes, that little 2-story office building, that's now under construction. It's called Oz Development. It's a very attractive 2-story office building, so that's now under construction.
Right here by the tunnel, you mean?
Yes.
Pickleball,
It's where the
court was
pickleball
gonna
was
go
gonna
in?
be.
Yes, and then they were the ones that going to do the pickleball, and then that didn't work for them financially, so they're moving their corporate office there.
Yeah,
What's the
we
company?
approved it a
Called
long time
Oz
ago.
Development.
They're a development company that they're building an office.
That's
Yes,
their office building, huh?
yep. I can show you that really quick if you want to see it.
Yeah, I saw them moving dirt around in the last week or two.
And where is that at exactly? I can't remember.
Right next to the tunnel.
200 North State Street on the west side of
The pharmacy is.
Right,
It's on one side of the road, it's on the other side.
okay.
Oh, okay.
That's why it's some of the last to finally somebody figure out
So-
what to do with it, so.
It's that building.
How big is it? And is it multi-tenant, or are they gonna?
Yeah, I think they're taking one floor and then renting the other.
And so that was obviously permitted use, so we didn't have anything to do with.
You just approved it as for a site plan.
Oh, we did, that's fine.
Yeah.
It was last year. They've taken a while to get off ground because of costs, construction costs.
I don't see the square footage, but 4,600 square feet per floor, probably. So, yeah. And then, Steve, I just wanted to check in with you on 540 construction traffic. How we doing?
It's better, but there are still trucks that probably daily go down.
Okay.
But it's not constant anymore.
Okay.
But, there's no, it's an open road now, so there's no barriers or anything like there used to be.
Oh, is there not? I didn't realize the barrier was gone.
Yeah, there's no barriers at the end of 570. So it's just open.
Okay.
So trucks do come up and down, I think it's.
Are they parking on 570?
I don't think they've been parking lately on 570. Now the road's paved.
Okay.
you know. But I do worry when they start building the homes, or as the townhomes come closer to 570, that, because I don't think, I haven't been by lately, but I still don't think they've completed the access to State Street.
No,
And so,
last week they hadn't.
and so, you know, all the trucks or everything, I think, go up 500 to turn in. But
Some of that's just gonna be where GPS takes them and how.
and
they
I think the
put it.
GPS, when they put in whatever address they're giving them, because I think the townhome address isn't on State Street. I think when they put that into GPS, it takes them through the neighborhoods. And so that's been the problem.
A different developer just bought the single-family home portion of the project.
Oh, really?
Oh, really?
Alpine Homes bought it.
Oh, good.
And so Mary and I did meet with them and say, look, your employees gotta go off state or 500, and so.
Yeah, and I do understand that I think their price point's gonna be a little lower. So maybe the quality will go down a little bit, but, you know, versus an $800,000 home, they're thinking more like in the $700,000 home range for those little homes. At least that's the last I heard there, but.
Any traction on the commercial properties up front?
I had a bank call me, that a bank is looking at it, but I haven't heard anything recently.
You haven't heard anything on the dental complex, though, that they were so adamant.
Yeah.
They were-
Well, I mean, the market has changed, as was said earlier. I mean, It's totally changed the
It's
cost.
gonna
of
change a lot in the
Building.
next 9 months.
Yeah. So,
And then my last thing, Sharon was reappointed for another term by the city council last week, and so.
Tell them I was happy to step down. Tell them over and over again.
How'd that work out?
It didn't work out for her. I said it didn't work out for her.
Another 3 years. Hey, but I did hear, I was talking to Mike Mancheri, I think he said that they did approve funding,
Oh,
mayor's
yeah.
pay raise, and
Yeah.
they gave us
Oh,
a
yes.
small pay
Yes,
raise.
you need to.
oh,
They have doubled your stipend, so.
I've never got 100% pay
Go
raise
buy me a new
before.
car.
$50, that's gonna be good.
Yeah, so they've increased that from 100 to 200 a month.
When's that take effect?
July 8th.
That's exciting.
Well, let me do
Oh,
all my
that's
money now.
exciting.
It was kind,
Don't tell our spouses, okay?
if it's direct deposit, I can't promise anything. It was kind of funny in city council meeting, someone brought it up and said, I think we should do a $25 raise, and then someone said, well, I think we should do 50, and then someone said, I think we should do 75, and then someone else said, I think let's do it 100. So it was kind of fun, so.
Oh, that's great. Well, thank you very much.
and I guess, my understanding, there's 5 people that filed for elections, right?
Yeah, and hindsight's
I don't think it's any of us.
Why didn't you find?
I'm done with that.
Hindsight's 20/20 for me. If I would have known that they were gonna push the election off until the end of November, not November 4th, then I might have had time to campaign with my schedule this year. But now, so I didn't, and now I see it's November 24th is the election. I go, I could have tried.
So is everybody's election pushed?
I guess
Yes.
that's why it made it sound.
Oh, we're not doing the first Tuesday yet?
No, it sounds like it's been pushed off to November 24th or something according to.
Of the election to replace Representative Stewart.
Right.
That's what drove it, huh?
Yeah, that's what drove it.
Yeah, so.
Thanks for the good job you do, Mike.
I appreciate you very
Mary.
much.
Mary.
And Mary. Mary's back there, we can't see her. Well, unless you have anything else, Mike,
Just trying to find the list of candidates, but I can't find it right offhand.
well, I can tell you who they are. You probably all know.
I don't.
Huh?
You
No? Well, it's Steve Stewart, Lincoln
Oh,
Jacobs,
yeah, I know Steve.
Brett-
Lincoln.
Lincoln Jacobs, Brett Frampton,
Brett?
Cole Hooley,
Cole, yeah, okay.
and Greg Lupus? Yeah. Yeah, Steve Stewart, yes.
Oh, yeah, here it is. Yeah, Cole Hooley, Greg Lupus, Brett Frampton, Steve Stewart, and Lincoln Jacobs.
It's gonna be a big shakeup on the council for 3 new seats. That could change the direction of council, so.
Hey, I just lastly, before you adjourn, I just really want to thank everybody for your help on the general plan. That's a big haul, and like was said, I think we went through a really good public process. I was so happy with the amount of people we had come to our last open house when I think giving away pool passes is the key.
That really helped.
So, I mean, we had almost 100 people there that night, and Mary and I were hoping to get 10, and we had around 100, so that was really impressed with that. So thank you for all your work, coming to extra meetings, and we really appreciate it. Again, I got a few technical things like I need to replace Karen with name on the front page instead of Renee as part of the planning commission. There's a few technical things like that I still need to fix.
Yeah, I noticed we still got Renee on there, so
Yeah.
that'd be nice to have the real person on there.
Right. I already have it clouded on the comment one downstairs, so.
Well, I thought it was a really interesting process to work with that big of, section of the community.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that. So, well, if we're done, do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn. I'll second it.
Okay. Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. And thank you to you residents for being here with us.
I want you to know I walked that property. I got kicked off.
Did you come with your wife in a white car? I saw you get out the driveway. I wondered if that was you as well.
Did you?
Yeah.
Well, I walked down the alley to see